The Philippines is becoming a hub for motorcycle production. The Philippines is becoming a motorcycle production hub in the region with local producers, the latest of which is Honda Philippines Incorporated, now exporting locally made units, Trade and Industry Secretary Ramon M. Lopez said. Honda will start exporting its motorcycles to New Zealand this quarter, Lopez announced at the Security Bank's 2021 Economic Forum The Future of the Philippine Manufacturing Industry on the future of motorcycle manufacturing in the country as he cited the growing number of foreign motorcycle producers in the Philippines. Other recent developments in the industry include Yamaha's expansion in Batangas to produce new models in the country, creating 1,000 more jobs. Other expansions by local producers include the Ayala-led KTM operation for the assembly of big bikes for the domestic market, as well as export to China and other ASEAN countries. Today, Lopez said, there are about 4 Japanese motorcycle manufacturers and assemblers. In addition, there are about 12 from China and 1 Europe. I think this is really a fast-growing sector for transportation and mobility, he said. Based on DTI monitoring, Lopez said the domestic motorcycle industry grew by 22% as of January 2021 compared to the previous year. Japan External Trade Organization, JETRO, Manila Office Investment and EPA advisor Tomohiro Ando cite the huge Philippine market for motorcycles of more than 2 million units annually as unique in the world. I think in the long term the Philippines has good potential, he said, referring to potentials in the local market and as a production base for exports to other ASEAN countries. With a production volume of more than 1 million annually, Ando said this should motivate investors. He also cited the competitive factor in the country with the improvement in market access because of the regional free trade agreements that the Philippines is a part of. Meantime, Lopez said that DTI has been courting the big guys in the manufacturing sector to consider the Philippines if not set up research and development. This is the reason for the DTI's push to make the Philippines also an AI center for excellence and RAND capabilities so that we can really attract all those big companies to do more high-value-adding services here in the country. He noted the decision of Dyson to set up its RAND center in the Philippines. So we're inviting more and more of Dyson-like companies to consider the Philippines, said Lopez, adding the DTI is talking more of hyperscalers, those that can build more data centers and infrastructures here in the country. As you know, in Singapore, Vietnam is reaching saturation point, and that's the reason why we're pushing for the Philippines also as the alternative location for those kinds of operations that are high technology, he said. He said that very competitive incentive packages await mega investors and RAND facilities under the CREATE law. In addition, the president is also allowed under the law to sweeten an incentive package to very strategic investments. Under the law, the corporate income tax rate on large corporations will go down to 25% from the current 30% and 20% on micro, small and medium enterprises. Projects also enjoy a special CIT of 5% for a certain period once their income tax holiday expires. Aside from the regular tax perks, companies are also given 50% tax deduction on their expenses for training and RAND expenses. Meanwhile, the Philippines eyed as a manufacturing hub for electric vehicle components. Manila, the Philippines can be a regional hub for the manufacturing of electric vehicle (EV) components such as auto electronics, charging stations, and battery, the country's top official said Thursday. Speaking at the 8th Philippine Electric Vehicle Summit held online Thursday, Department of Trade and Industry, DTI, Secretary Ramon Lopez said the country has 3 key advantages in the global EV industry. These include the country's strong electronics and electronic parts sector, mineral resources, and development of its competency in EV technology, he said. More than just locally manufacturing EPUVs, public utility vehicles, let us envision the Philippines to be a globally competitive and innovative manufacturing hub for strategic EV parts and components like auto electronics, charging stations, and EV batteries, he added. The DTI chief said the EV industry can leverage domestic electronics manufacturing strengths and developing auto electronics and EV components. The industry shares more than 50% of Philippine exports. Lopez added the Philippines is rich in mineral resources, such as nickel and cobalt that are used for producing batteries. In fact, the Philippines hosts 5% of global nickel reserves and 4% of global cobalt reserves. Let us make use of these valuable reserves to produce high-value products such as batteries, he said. He said the Philippine Nickel Industry Association, PNIA, has partnered with the Power Battery Application Committee of China Industrial Association of Power Sources, CHAPS PBA, to deepen the Philippine nickel industry's participation in the global supply chain for battery production. He added local EV manufacturer Tojo Motors has partnered with the CHAPS PBA for the sourcing of battery cells and with Jiangsu Highstar Battery Manufacturing Company for the local assembly of EV batteries. Lopez further said the country can develop its competency in EV technology as it did for the aerospace industry by developing higher value design engineering for aerospace parts. On our end, the government is committed in its support to enable the Philippine EV industry, especially in helping manufacturers and promoting demand, he said. He cited fiscal and non-fiscal incentives being offered to EV industry investors through the Board of Investments, BOI, as the sector is part of the Investments Priorities Plan. We also have the Motor Vehicle Development Program, MVDP, and Executive Order 488. Likewise, the EV industry will benefit from the government's PUV modernization program and DTI Boys e-mobility initiatives, Lopez added. The EV industry is also part of the priority sector under DTI's Inclusive Innovation Industrial Strategy promoting the adoption of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The DTI chief also envisions the country to tap the global EV market. Citing data from the International Energy Agency, global sales of electric cars in 2019 increased by 40%, even the overall car market declined by 15%. That's an additional 2.1 million EVs for a total of 7.2 million in the world today. This is the future and their transformation has started. We should not be left behind, Lopez said. He added the local EV industry is growing as major automobile brands, such as Mitsubishi and Nissan, bring in their EV models in the Philippine market. Korean carmaker Hyundai has already introduced its EVs in the Philippines. Lopez said there are around 50 industry players, including EV manufacturers such as BMAC, Tojo Motors, and Star. These local EV players annually produce 150,000 units of wide-range EV products with combined project costs of PHP 1.31 billion, he noted.